Again in studio, this time about English, but also the value of different forms of simple knowledge. Psychology is not easy forum, but it's not also easy to understand any very rich people or the thousand most richest people in the world. They have a very precise form of psychiatry. So, for 90% of humans that are actually working every day, there are some sort of not very understandable behavior. Of course, the richest people in the world also do not have any mind. To understand the science, you should actually not look for more and more rich people, but you should actually understand simple form of psychology, but also attention. The attention that you have on the streets or wherever in this world, or what you are looking for or giving attention to, you'll also understand better emotion and your simple value, which is not always related to money, sometimes related to intelligence, but intelligence sometimes is also to wait and not to be too much about any form of recognition. A lot of people look for more and more recognition, but that's some sort of psychology. To understand different forms of personalities in simple business world is also not easy, but there is also philosophy that business is worth nothing. To understand different forms of functions in life, it's not easy. But to understand clinical interpretations in different forms of development, it's also not easy. To understand health problems in this world, it's not easy for doctors, so scientists can work a little bit more. To understand diversity in life, but also the development and the human, usually it's developed in more and more work. That's very psychiatric term. To understand evolutions in different products, it's also not easy. And if you think about psychology about products and what products are the best for company or some brand or figure, it is very difficult to decide which product is actually the best. To understand different forms of adaptations together with code, it's not easy, but also people trust ability a lot. Also, all the study people make and any school they finish, the other people told them that it's everything in ability or what you accomplish. But sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes occur that sometimes we must actually adapt some form and sometimes change some form, but sometimes also make more and more investment in self. Of course, self is a theory if you do not share anything or you only share with those 15 people around you. Of course, sometimes it's better to share to 50 or 100 people, but of course, you can also share in more and more forums. You do not, in life, you actually do not need to share any money, and it's even better not to share money a lot of time. And that's how you build better psychological terrain for people around you and better patterns. To understand the beauty of simple information is also very difficult, but also different spiritual interpretations that appears in book. But there is actually the beauty of diversity also in the stock markets. And of course, there is not a lot of people that understand different value in understanding politics. Of course, there are thousands of different subjects also in different forms of company, but the security together with richer information it's also very important because people usually become too much emotional when they see prosperity. Sometimes the truth is very difficult in life, but sometimes also athletics are difficult or investing is difficult. That do not mean that you should actually forget on investing. In life, you should not forget on all beautiful things if you want to become more and more Taoist. But sometimes it's also important to understand that all the picture are objects and you should not be involved in the more than just classical modeling theorem. To understand Taoism tradition is also not easy, but sometimes that's some sort of different philosophies, also in America, but also in York Stock Exchange. The ethics in human society usually are actually work and more work. Different forms of agents appear together with different forms of table in different restaurants where they are going to explain to their clients that they are the best agents. Do not believe any agent that they are the best agent because probably they are not the best. Your agent, if you are having products, of course, is do not need to be anything special. It can only be a simple form of psychology and simple human that achieve some simple results. Sometimes it's very important to understand simplicity in life, but also to understand that you should not obey all the leaders or to obey all the smart adults. Because if you think they have value, but sometimes they do not have, that's a huge problem in your psychology. Of course, to understand different forms of ethics, it's not easy, but also the ethics applied to the science, especially in society, and sometimes to build ethics and end some town crisis. Sometimes the world traditions are ridiculous, and me is also obligated to not to be a hero, but actually to build book. But also sometimes my book have minimum price of €1,000 per one. Sometimes it's also very important to discuss the ethics of the price, but not to forget you must lower the price for 50% if someone poorer would like to purchase your book. To understand different forms of transformation, especially from English to Spain and English to French language is also important, especially to understand the nature. Also, of course, people can build different forms of symbol around their items and products, especially if those are products related to beauty. The beauty in medicine is also very important, but it's very important to understand that you should not, whatever you do, forget the simple ethical things in life. In society, there are millions of ethical problems, and that's why sometimes it's also important to make money. Of course, with money you can buy a lot of food if you have a lot of money. And sometimes spiritual people told you that you do not need money, but in the real life, you actually need money because you need some food. There are difficult questions and theory which people actually become millionaires in dollars or euros, but also which ethics they had. But to understand the facts in real life, it is sometimes very difficult, and sometimes you must put yourself under theorem. But my theorem is actually abstraction, 95% of life, and it is not easy to understand my statements always. In reality, the gurus are some sort of beauty, but also to understand the desire of different gurus to help people. Sometimes it's very important to build the right forms in life, but also the right beauty products if you are looking to build more fortune. To understand different forms of the case, but also history is sometimes important, but not too much. Sometimes it's also important to build different forms of logic together with different forms of items. To build the science items is also important, but also to build different forms of situational ethics. All those things are going to go together with the nature of France, but also with the nature of Spain, and you are going to understand more forms, but also more beauty. The beauty is not only what we see, but to build some sort of simple ethics together with yoga, medicine, Daoism, or ethics and different forms of interpretations. Even in chaos, sometimes people can find different logics. And of course, it's not easy to build different forms of logics in chaos. And when there is a lot of order, again, or sometime if you want to build fortune, it become chaos. How hard is to build very, very prestige items that you would own with very, very, very simple forms. Sometimes chaos, it's working much better.